I'm Mike Baker, the CEO of DataXu.
So, hi, my name is Jamie West. I'm Deputy MD of Sky Media in the UK and also work across Europe, helping to devise our advanced advertising strategy, if you like, and our product suite.
Charlie Chappell. I am the head of global media at the Hershey company.
I'm Frans Vermeulen from Comcast, part of a new division. It's called Comcast Platform Services. It's technology and data services for the business of TV, both advertising, distribution, and recently a lot of data-centric offerings for programmers and VPDs. So.
TV is a model that's proved very effective for advertising, especially for brands like yours.
Yeah.
They're looking for a lot of reach. What's wrong with TV? Why are we talking about advances and new versions of something if it's working so well?
Yeah, I think the journey we've been on that we've seen as a company, and we were primarily a TV advertiser. Even just a few years ago, we were almost well over 90% into TV, and fundamentally it was because it worked. So it was working for a while, and we really stuck with it because our business was going well. And then basically what we started to see about 2014 in the U.S. was consumers' attention was shifting away from that. And so we've had to respond. But still, we advertise over 20 different brands within the U.S. We've got a broad portfolio. We need to reach everybody. So the thing that we're watching at right now is, where's the consumer going to land? I've been in CPG for over 15 years now, and the need to develop effective communication has always been there. I think in a lot of the last few years in the talk about digital and then into ad tech, that gets lost. Yeah. And as the advertiser, the marketer who's out there spending the money, that frustrates me to no end. One of the things that we're doing to deal with the fragmentation is saying, at the end of the day, we know in the pre-digital world we did TV because moving sight and sound with pictures sells confection better than static. Now as we move into this world, into the new world today, now we talk about video. And so as we start to put together a media plan, we literally talk about video, and then what are all the different ways, and we're looking at linear TV versus online video versus, what a Facebook will offer or on down the line, and say, how do we put that all together and create one unduplicated plan of reach, and then move depending on where the consumer goes or wherever the prices go, and have that fluidity. That's really what we get down to. And then how do you make a great ad? It's still on, but now viewing video is so much more of an engaged environment, and we had been used to creating ads and buying media that worked in a passive viewing environment, and we started to see the effectiveness slow down.
So have you seen the same, what Charlie referred to, the 2014 effect? Is it as pronounced?
The first thing to say is that the UK and European market is very different to the US, both in terms of price point, but also in terms of pay TV penetration. So pay TV penetration in the US is 80+%. In the UK, it's just over 50%, and the price point is significantly lower. The ad experience is significantly lower as well in terms of ads per hour. So for an advertiser and indeed the consumer, the audience, it's a fundamentally different experience. We are very lucky at Sky because we are a pay TV platform. We're also a content owner, and we're also at Sky Media a sales house. So we represent NBC Universal, Discovery, Viacom, Channel 5. So we're a really broad-reaching channel. And that enables us to look at the market through a very different lens to the US market. And we really think about one thing and one thing alone. And it's kind of a relatively recent sort of change in strategy. And it's no longer about, how can we drive our revenues? It's now, how do we create more relevance for advertisers by delivering one thing and one thing alone? That's effective advertising outcomes. And so we're building out a portfolio, if you like, of products and services and opportunities that range from addressable TV to cross-device and sequential ad serving, frequency capping across platforms, powered by DataXu, programmatic capabilities in partnership with Freewheel and Videology, and then more importantly, or as importantly, particularly, as we were talking earlier, the CPG market, analytics. How do we prove out the return on investment you can get from a single campaign at any given point? So you can prove out the efficacy of your media, whether that be linear TV, addressable TV, or digital. Absolutely delineate money in, money out. How do we deliver effective advertising outcomes?
Yeah.
How do we ensure the publisher gets paid for its role in media? And how do we ensure that only the relevant value adds in that tech chain, earn something?
So let's just break off that first bit, unduplicated reach.
Yeah.
So that sounds, I love the simplicity of it, but let's get into it. Yeah, why is that so hard?
I mean, it's just the fragmentation of viewing, obviously, and there's just so many technologies involved, and you might be working in one world with like a mobile sort of ID or a user ID or a device ID. The TV sort of MVPD community has tremendous information available from its traditional set-top boxes. Sky and Comcast have also released more internet-oriented set-top boxes, which are much better experiences for consumers. But naturally, I just think as the TV business and sort of the fragmentation of viewing and video, we call it new TV. You can call it video. It's kind of all the same. We're just we're coming from a position of strength in terms of the value of TV advertising that we don't want to just kind of let that go, which is why we reference it as new TV. But ultimately, we as an industry are much more fragmented, right? You can talk about Comcast as a huge company, and it is. We have a $23 billion pay TV business, but that's 20-ish% of the U.S., right? The rest is Time Warner Cable and Dish and DirecTV, right? So there's 10 or 15 major MVPDs who can help with unduplicated reach.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of conversation around, okay, well, how do I compare that to 1.5 billion Facebook users where across every device where you consume Facebook as an end
But in
user?
reality, that doesn't solve the unduplicated reach because it doesn't take into account TV. And I think the really interesting thing that we all need to take into account is there are hundreds of self-serving arguments out there in the marketplace, whether they be from Sky or whether they be from any other player. But ultimately, we need to reflect much more objectively about what is out there in the market and how real the proposition is. The amount of over-promising and under-delivering from publishers, ad tech companies, all combined, is no longer sustainable. And actually what you need to look at is, okay, where can I get a consistent and constant set of data that enables us to understand cross-device consumption? We're fortunate in the UK that, with our 3 million home panel, that we have, and also all of our many customer touch points, that we have an understanding of customer journeys across all the different platforms. And then you layer in advertiser data sets or third-party commercially available data sets or OneView, you have this ability to frequency cap. No one else in the UK and Europe has that capability. US is slightly different with Rentrack. So that is representative of the whole market. But let's be realistic and let's be balanced and not have the partisan view. And let's look at just, going back to that core proposition, we can today deliver a sequential ad messaging from TV into digital, into programmatic radio, into programmatic outdoor as a single campaign frequency capture. We can do that today.
Can you work with our media partner and give us the data we need to calculate the unduplicated reach? And guess what? More money will flow. You got to know who you're trying to reach, and do that work and figure out who it is, and then let the media data come back and tell you where those people are, and then what's the best price to get it, and it'll change every year.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, back to the fundamental shift like 4 years ago. We are all, as an industry, kind of making these investments and trying to better understand that efficacy. The TV plus digital in the right ways can be a real multiplier for efficacy or ROI.
Yeah.
Frans, what are some of the other impediments, or Jamie? What do you see? What are the big issues that need to be solved?
So obviously, subscription business, we have an ongoing commitment of trust with our customers. So, I mean, they're kind enough to pay us a monthly subscription. We need to treat them with respect, and so we have some principles, and the new EU privacy directive that comes in 2018 is kind of saying, even a device ID or an IP address is personal data, so we can't pass that to the external party, so we need to keep that within the Sky environment. So what we've built up is an ad tech stack that allows us to surface that data-enabled impression, if you like, but keep that data our side of the wall.
Behind your firewall.
Yeah. And we have a minimum size for segments on addressable TV and digital. It's never a one-to-one, a pure one-to-one relationship. It's targeted, absolutely. We're thinking about a pod of spots in a break, so 3 minutes of ads, for instance, or you're thinking about the previous breaks, the preceding and the following ad break. And so, with Freewheel, etc., we are thinking about how can we, make sure that we're not just complying with regulation. That's kind of important, but how do we enrich the customer experience so that we don't annoy them?
Right.
And that's important. That's part of that trust. We have a transaction relationship with our customers. It is one-to-one relationship, and they trust us implicitly to deliver them fantastic content, fantastic service. Why on earth would we allow that to be disintermediated by Google?
And you don't want to creep people out too, right? Everyone talks about the sort of the future of super targeted, super addressable television, but if you're not careful, right, either in the ad experience in terms of repeating things, or if you know that, all right, in your footprint or in the cable footprint, that let's just say there's 1 million households that are in market for a high-end luxury automobile, that we just don't, that all they don't see are BMW and Lexus or whatever ads. There's a trust, I think, also there with the consumer that you need to be really, really, really careful.
Charlie, we haven't talked about creative. Sort of, the issues that are holding back this kind of converged sight, sound, and motion across devices. Talk a little bit about, the challenge there, and is that something that, you sort of view as, is it the long pole at the end of the day?
Yeah, it is, and I think it's just, the whole thing has to work. It's great that you can have all this technology and all this data to serve creative dynamically and even get beyond just, insert the location for the car dealership because you know where the person is coming from, but actually take somebody on a journey. But the hard part of that is the creative side is still making the transition of this world where I like to make $500 million 30-second TV ads, and so we have found you really have to challenge your creative agency as well to think very differently so that they're not thinking about those 1 or 2 ads, but we have some now where they're producing in half of a year up to 600 different pieces, from that standpoint, and it starts from the very beginning of the idea. So like the first time you go and meet with that creative agency about this, broader campaign, you have to say, oh, and by the way, I'm going to do all this program, I'm going to do all this from a media standpoint, so I need an idea that can work, and is it cost prohibitive to produce all this creative? So
how can you automate it if you can't understand? Okay, I'm going to have Jamie said something in hundreds of versions for one of his campaigns. Like, okay, how do you? And then the data associated with the results of that also become.
It's very complex. How do you get your head around a bunch of variations, times a bunch of different segments, times a bunch of different times of day and days of week, and that's another advertisement perhaps for automation, but it almost becomes too much for any team of people to sort of sift through on a weekly, media insights basis.
Only a few months ago, we ran an addressable TV campaign for Peugeot, and so one campaign had 220-something different creative executions, and it was locality and model based on, affluence and household, but they were all manually sort of ingested and then put on the platform, and then it was programmatic in its serving, but how do we create dynamic creative optimization across our platform? And Charlie's absolutely right. Working with the creative agencies, we've already worked with something like 60 different creative agencies in addressable TV, but the 40 of them are small, bespoke or boutique shops that are creating, ad creative for McLaren cars at £8,000. The car costs $170,000. They're spending £8,000 on creative and $100,000 on media or whatever the number was. But finding those media shops that can create 15 different variants for each different segment of a 30-second slot, and there could be 10 segments.
One example, we have a brand in the U.S. called Jolly Rancher. It's a hard candy. And if you want to see this in action, go and follow them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter out there. And literally it's down to the point where at the age, they knew it's not a big brand, there's not a big budget, but when they came up with the idea, they knew they wanted to play in the social space, they knew, and then it moved to TV from there, actually. So they can actually respond in real time in social media. It's the idea was designed to work from the very beginning. Now, that's one. You have to ask for that at the opening brief. If you don't, you're not going to get it because it's just not natural.
Look, I think you're going to have much more addressability at that point in terms of the marketing side of things.
From a European perspective, we've just launched a new box called SkyQ, and one of the things that we've done is we've taken the decision to be bold and brave and trust in the quality of our content and put it up against everything else. So we have online video, we have YouTube on our set-top box, we have Red Bull, we have GoPro, 26 others that I can't remember on there as well. We have on demand, you don't come into the set-top box into the linear EPG guide. You come into a consumer menu that lets you choose.
The web video as well.
And the question was about 2021. What do I think? I think the consumer will choose what content. I think more and more content will be on demand or IP streamed. All of our new set-top boxes are IP enabled. I also think in terms of the advertising side, I think data will drive more decisioning and more programming than ever before, and we will enable programmatic capability, whether that be a single campaign frequency capped across all platforms, whether that be programmatic linear, which you've already got in the US. We don't have it in the UK and Europe at the moment, but absolutely system-to-system integration between either agency or advertiser. And I say that because more and more advertisers are looking to understand their end-to-end customer journey from marketing plan to outcome. Yep. And that, in our experience in the UK, it means that we are much more a part of a tripartite conversation where we are equal partners at that conversation. Mm-hmm. And we come together and we decide, we understand what the campaign strategy is, and that is executed across platform.
Inevitably, you're going to see all kinds of new distribution models, and I think that balance between, in the UK they've got half the ad load that they do and that we do in the US. I think you're going to see that shift, and you're going to see consumers having way more options to, okay, you're going to get this stuff for free, but there's going to be X amount of ads, and you can pay a little more, you can pay something and get less advertising, or you can pay this and get I just think there's going to be much more fluidity in how you either as a consumer get access to premium long form TV quality content with a quality viewing experience as well, and I think there's just going to be a lot more fluidity there for consumers. It's just inevitable.